Good morning, everybody. This is Trina Gunzel, and welcome to another episode of the Legacy and Legends podcast. I'm so excited to be sharing with you amazing stories of incredible people literally around the globe as we are featuring this Light the World series. It was so popular in December, we decided to continue that light year-round because there are always amazing people doing wonderful things, and I love to spotlight them, featuring them here on the Legacy and Legends podcast. So I'm your host, Trina Gunzel, and today we are going to be having some fun taking it international with my guest this morning. Riley, welcome. Or should I say bienvenidos, wherever you are.
Muchas gracias. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And can you please do a little intro, let our audience know who you are and where you're located today?
Yes. So my name is Railey Molinario. I'm an expert love educator and relationship coach. I am from the United States. I live in England and I'm currently traveling for 4 months. My first stop is here in Tenerife, Spain. It's warm, it's sunny. People are at the beach in bikinis. Absolutely.
That is awesome. Well, and I feel like we need to do some little travel patches just while you're talking, because it's like the whole loop. Everybody's going to be like, oh, I want to travel. Really take us with you. Get us out of this gray where we are right now.
Yes. Awesome. Yes. I didn't travel as a child. My family never really went on holidays and things like that. Yeah. So when I was able to be independent and start to travel, it just became my passion. When I was in the States, I would say now, if I have to compare myself to, other travelers, I would say that according to sort of the average American, I'm very well traveled. Compared to the average European, I have not been anywhere yet.
Right? I remember that. When we toured with our kids for 3 years, people are like, oh, well, how are you homeschooling? And I said, well, we're homeschooling through experiences. I said, I can't show my daughter better art than taking her to see the actual Sistine Chapel or the Louvre. And like, she knows what all these pieces and things are. It was incredible. And I love traveling. Like, my parents did take us traveling, but it was more road trips. We did a lot of road trips from Arizona to Michigan as kids, and then Mexico, which is where I fell in love with language and started learning Spanish. And I'm a fluent bilingual educator as well, but it was that passion for what are they saying? I want to know. And here now my son is on a mission learning Farsi. He speaks Farsi. And I'm like, of all the languages in the world, now we have Italian, Spanish, Farsi, French, German, and my daughter's trying to learn right now Japanese. So I'm like, how cool, right? If I want to learn as many languages as possible, it's fun to speak with people.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So I've been to 16 countries so far.
Awesome.
Again, according to the average European, not so many, but I have many, many on my list. So I'm so excited to just go different places, hear different languages, eat different types of food, and just see how other people live. When I was younger, and I'm from a really small town, I didn't realize how big the world was. And now that I get to experience all those different things, I'm like, actually, I know nothing about the world. And I love that feeling.
It keeps you humble and it keeps you growing. And I think, when I was little, I so relate. Like, my little town's called Pine, Arizona. And to me, that was the world. Like, anywhere I went, this reminds me of a mountain in Pine. This reminds me of this. And my husband's like, he's traveled since he was little with his family around the world. And he's like, honey, no, it's not. So he made a point. He took us to the Netherlands, and we've been to Germany and Austria and Italy. We went to Sicily and France and Belgium, all these places with our kids where they have such a different perspective and view of the world and grew up. I feel like they're just their tastes and their ability to communicate with people and empathize and compassion, because you see how people live in different parts of the world is so different than like my little bubble life where everything was happy. But I didn't know, I didn't realize even how it was to navigate pickpockets, right, on like a train in Italy or whatever. There were just different things. Getting yelled at in the bathroom in German for not knowing how to put the money in the change thing. It was like, I just had no concept of that. So I'm sure you have tons of stories you could literally just write on your journeys. Yeah.
Yes. And so many more to go. I'm really, really excited.
I love it. Well, I'm excited to hear your story too, because honestly, I haven't actually met anybody with your specific job title. And I think it's really cool because while we have worked with couples and done lots of celebrity coaching and relationship work, I love being able to refer people who that is specifically their zone of genius, that they want to do that piece. And I would love to hear your story and like how you got into what you're doing now, and if it was a challenge or journey, and how you kind of work through that. And everybody's listening, snuggle up. If you don't have a special keto drink like my husband makes me, just grab whatever your favorite drink is and cozy in it. We're gonna bump you up, so this gets to be featured as part of the February series, since you are.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, sorry everybody. I do get cuts if I feel like it, because this just follows our theme. Plus, she has naturally curly hair like me, so there's got to be extra perks besides people sticking pencils in your hair in high school, right?
Yes, absolutely. So my journey is basically abandoned at birth to six-figure boss. This is the summary of my life story. So when I was an infant,
when you said that, that's just giving me goosebumps. Sorry, I'm like, everybody's hearing that, they're like, "What? Abandoned at birth to six-figure boss?"
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
I'm just
that is my life story.
Listen, yeah.
Yes. So when I was born, my mother was by herself in the hospital. My father wasn't anywhere to be seen, and she ended up taking me home. And he rejected her. He had already moved on to another woman who was living in the house, and we had nowhere to go. So my brother and my sister, who are just a few years older than me, decided to help us and pitch a tent in the backyard. And that's where we stayed for a significant amount of time. My father he is a person who is extremely disconnected. That empathy, that compassion, he just doesn't have that. And so I grew up then with my mother and my sister's dad, my stepfather, and we were living in this extremely abusive and neglectful household. My mother was in a financially abusive relationship, so she had 3 children and no job, no money, and she wasn't able to leave. So we were beaten every day. We were neglected. It was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. And I knew at a very, very young age that I was full of trauma. I didn't know the word for it, but I knew something was wrong. I knew that this was not the way that life was supposed to be. And it's not that I had anything else to, sort of reflect on it, but I just knew how unhappy I was.
Yeah.
And so it got to the point at the age of 16, I decided I can't do this anymore. I have to go, and I have to try to make it in the world on my own. So I left home. And the good thing is that I am very resilient.
Yeah, you are.
All of that trauma made me extremely resilient. So I was able to scrap together all of the things that I needed. And I got a house, I got a car, I went to university, I got 2 degrees, was able to work jobs to support myself, because we all know that university in the States is very expensive.
Yeah.
So I was able to get some scholarships and work and take care of myself. It was very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I was labeled as academically gifted. I was extremely book smart. And leaving home at 16, you become very street smart.
Yes.
But there was something else that was missing. Although I was investing in the stock market, and I had a house, and I had a car, and I was going to school, and I was on my way to work on Wall Street. That was my dream job. I was absolutely miserable. I was suffering from anxiety and depression.
Sure.
I wasn't happy. The motivation was running out, and I was only like 20 years old. And I thought, I just can't do this anymore. So I decided to go to a hotel room and take my life. I thought, I just want this suffering to end. Any means possible, it has to end. So I went to the hotel room. I decided that was what I was going to do. I was very relaxed with the idea. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I felt more relief than anything. But before I decided to make that decision, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I asked myself, almost out of nowhere, do I actually want to die, or do I want the suffering to end? And in that moment, I realized that those were 2 different things.
Yeah.
That if I could actually create a life for myself where I was connected, where I loved myself, where I loved waking up in the morning and doing the things that I was doing, that's actually something I would want to participate in.
Yeah.
So I realized that I did have the book smarts, I did have the street smarts, but there was one other piece that was missing that was more important than those two things. And that's what I refer to as relationship intelligence. So relationship intelligence is the connection and ability to navigate relationships successfully. So first, the relationship that we have with ourselves, and then the relationships we have with other people. And we truly, truly understand that the quality of our life is dependent on the quality of our relationships. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how beautiful you are. We see it all the time in Hollywood. People who seem to have it all, and then they kill themselves because they just are suffering from that inability to love themselves, connect with themselves, and the world around them. So when I was able to go through this journey and learn all of those things that I hadn't yet known, I started to realize, hold on a second, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, right.
Who's this. And really learning about my mom's story and what happened to her when she was a child, and realizing that that was generational trauma being passed down.
That's right.
Realizing that I have 5 sisters and a brother. Even in my own family, I wasn't the only one. They were all affected. And so this became my mission, to minimize suffering as much as I can while I'm on this planet, because I understand what it feels like to suffer. And so much of that suffering is from ignorance. It's because we are not taught these really important life skills. Yes, we learn how to do math and read and science and all of these things, but where is the education on ourselves and on relationships? When people come into my community, the first question that I ask them is, when did you learn how to have a successful relationship? Who taught you? And they start to think, and I ask them, did your parents teach you? Did they sit you down and open a book and say, here's the formula for success? And they're like, no. And I say, did you take a class in school called relationship intelligence? No. So when were you supposed to learn how to have successful relationships? The only thing that we're referring to are TV shows, movies, music, what society says, what we see on TikTok and Instagram, what our friends are telling us, who are probably in worse relationships than we are. There's a lack of information and there's a lack of education. The most difficult thing for me to sit with is the fact that we do have the formula for success. Relationships are not this sort of mysterious thing that we don't understand and we're not able to comprehend. We do have the formula. We've been able to research and study relationships on a scientific level. So the same way we understand that 1 + 1 = 2, that red and yellow equals orange, we do understand exactly what pieces, skills, tools, and techniques you need to have a successful relationship. But the problem is no one's talking about it. So my job is just to provide this information and give people this information, because once they have it, their whole life changes. And this isn't just about, romance and Valentine's Day, although I love those things. It's really about ending generational trauma, generational suffering, ignorance, poverty, because we just don't have these tools and techniques at our fingertips.
And would you say a big result from that? I mean, you took them through its education, right? And I'm thinking probably to communication skills, how to love not only themselves, but others.
Yes. So relationship intelligence has 4 pillars. It's very similar to emotional intelligence, but it's in relation to other people. So the first 2 have to do with yourself, self-awareness and self-management. We're terrible at this. We are terrible at this. I realized that I was my worst enemy. That was one of the biggest wake-up calls I ever had, because I was blaming my parents. You did this to me and you did that to me. And then I realized one day, hold on a second, I'm not living with them anymore. They're not making decisions for me anymore. Hold on a second. And that's when I started to realize that I was telling my story, but I was telling my story for a pity party. You know, I was telling my story as an excuse as to why I was the way that I was, not recognizing I can change that. Yes, it's going to be a process. Yes, it's going to take time and take effort, but I can do it. If I recognize, you know, with self-awareness, if I recognize what are my values, what are my beliefs, what are my boundaries, what's important to me, what are my emotions, you know, at any given moment, how do I stay present? What kind of life do I want to create for myself? And then the self-management, well, how do I do that? What are the steps that I need to take? There was one thing that I'm a very, very honest person, because I want people to hear me and say, oh, okay, she's been through it too.
Yes,
Because
integrity and ethics is a big thing. I mean,
sometimes people see me and they're like, oh, you look like you had the best life. I'm like, well, thank you, but no. So I spill it all, you know, I spill it all. I was a person that loved to throw things. This was part of the rage that I had. And I have to say, they had these places now where you can actually pay and you go break things, right? I haven't been yet, but I have to go.
One of my clients actually went because her ex is horrible and she was going through something awful, and she loved it. She's like, yeah, my husband saw a side of me he's never seen, but that rage room, I get what you're saying.
Yes, I would love to go. I haven't gone yet, but I had my own rage room in my own house. You know, I would take I would get so anxious that I would take whatever was closest to me and I would throw it against the wall. And if it made an indent, it was kind of like a high that I got. It was my way of releasing all of that tension.
Yeah.
Now, just because I'm frustrated doesn't mean I have to throw something. Just because I'm angry, it doesn't mean I have to drink a bottle of vodka. Just because I'm sad, it doesn't mean that I have to, you know, eat a tub of ice cream. I get to choose in that moment what reaction I have. If I choose a reaction that's going to feed into the negativity, well, that's on me. If I choose a reaction that's going to benefit me and move me past that difficult emotion, that's also on me, but that's going to bring me closer to that life that I want to live. So once I recognized that, I was like, oh, I can change my entire life just by understanding myself and then making the right decisions to create that life that I want to live.
We're so aligned. I love it. And the fact that you figured that out, most people go their whole lives and never figure this out. And it's literally the key to winning in the scheme of life, like to happiness, to relationship fulfillment, all those things, because you're right. That if you're never willing to take responsibility for creating the life you want, you'll never have it. And you don't get there by blaming everyone else. Like there's so many sparkle moments, and like we have so many specific connections, and the other things where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like you said, seeing where you are right now, you would never guess that's part of your story, but you decided to create a new story instead of being stuck in that victim.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Oh
And gosh. They were the first thing that I did on my journey, because I think a lot of people want to know, how do you start? How do you start this journey? You know, I started my journey many, many years ago. And I didn't know what I didn't know. That was the thing. I didn't have a clue where to start. You know, when I was in university, YouTube just came out. You know, we just started using computers. Like this was way before all of this information we have now at our fingertips. So I didn't even know what to do or how to figure this out. But the first thing that I recognize is that this thing is broken. Like I'm just constantly pessimistic. I'm constantly negative. I'm constantly sad. I'm constantly anxious. How can I first change this? Because this is the tool that's going to allow me to go on this journey, and this tool is broken. So the first thing that I did was rewrite that tape. I started listening to people like Anthony Robbins and Les Brown, because growing up in trauma, all I heard were negative things. You're never going to be good enough. Nothing good is ever going to happen. You're this, you're that. Those were all the words that I heard. I never heard words of encouragement. I didn't believe that I could make something out of my life. Even though I was doing quite well on paper, I still felt, well, I'm just going to be a failure. So I had to rewrite that tape first by hearing those encouraging words and then repeating them to myself subconsciously.
Yeah. That is awesome. Well, and as you're going through and doing your work now, like how long have you been doing this work as, is it relationship coach? Is that kind of what the umbrella you put it in?
Yes. So I identify as a love educator and relationship coach.
That's
So,
awesome.
relationship coach, there are many of us, right?
Mhm.
And this is really guiding couples to really be able to create a foundation for their relationship and work through their issues, communicate better. But the love educator part is also really important to me because I think people need to realize that relationships are something that we have to learn how to create. There's
Mhm.
a lot of confusion going on right now. People think that if you just fall in love with someone and the two of you have some things in common, then you're going to be, happily ever after the end. This is what we see in the movies, right? And
Right.
especially like
Right.
Disney.
Oh man,
Oh,
Disney.
I love you so much. And then we're going to be together. And then. But we have to understand that thriving relationships are created. They don't just happen. It's like if you want six-pack abs, you can really love abs, but they're not going to pop on your body. You have to work them.
Right. Yeah.
So the love education part, it's about education. It's about spreading this information the same way we learn about finances. We learn about, how to build an Eiffel Tower. We learn how to cut grass, build businesses, whatever it is. We have to learn, and the
Yeah.
education just isn't there. And so it's really disappointing that people are so confused about relationships. They're so confused about how to communicate.
Yeah.
There are people that I work with that are 40, 50, 60 years old, and they don't even know how to identify their emotions. They say to me, I'm happy, I'm sad. That's all they have.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult for them to be able to express themselves, communicate with their partner if all they have is happy and sad. And
Yeah.
for me, it's a failure on our society. It's a failure on the society. For me, I have tons of empathy and compassion for individual couples. And I tell them when I work with them, this is not your fault. It's not that you're enjoying this. It's not that your partner is enjoying this. You're both suffering. You're both miserable, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is not the two of you because you're trying, you're just failing because society has set you up for failure. And
Yeah.
for me, this is more about getting this information to everyone the same way that we teach people how to read, how to write, how to add, all of these things. And this is why my business now, we're working on implementing this into the education system. It is essential that kids learn this because everything that I teach, I tell people, it's nothing you're not going to understand. It's not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. I'm not that smart. It's really basic concepts, but it takes practice. And if we can learn it at age 5, 6, 7 years old, then we get to practice. It is more difficult if you're 50 years old and you have 50 years of bad habits, limiting beliefs, misinformation, and then we try to change it. It's possible, and it does work, but people shouldn't be suffering for 50 years. They should learn this at a very young age.
I agree. And honestly, I love and support what you're doing so much. Like when I was teaching in public education with little kids for 10 years, so many people didn't understand, but like pre-K through second grade was some of my favorite grades to teach. And we started with all of those things first, teaching kindness, how to communicate, make sure they're well fed. We literally brought toothbrushes to school so they could brush their teeth and, if they needed new clothes or whatever, but caring for them and really handling that. Then they were more willing and wanting to learn math and reading and all this, but you can't do it if you're sad and your home life is a mess and you're dirty and you're hungry, you know what I mean? And so it was like those basic skills of compassion. And I love what you're doing. I believe in it so much. And Love Educator, it's so needed. Like our divorce rate is through the roof and it's ridiculous. And I truly believe like when people get married, they want to be together, but they have a hard time continuing it because they don't know how to communicate. They have a hard time with forgiveness. It's all the emotional and childhood baggage they're bringing into the relationship instead of it's you two. It's not your parents running your relationship or all those things. It's like, I'm just so grateful to have met you, and I'm happy to spread the word about you. Like I said, I'm actually going to publish this podcast today because I think it's so needed, and I want people to hear the word. So we will get this out. And when you think about, so you're working for getting this into the educational system as well, and older people, do you have like an ideal client? Like range that you really like to work with? Because I'm sure people are going to hear this and be like, oh my gosh, someone who can actually help me, how would they get in touch with you? And what's the best way to do that?
Yes, I work with people before they're getting into relationships, so single people.
Cool.
And this ideally would be my preference that everyone before they get into a relationship, they
Yes.
take this course. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
But unfortunately, we don't live in a preventative medicine society. We think, oh, no, I'm going to be fine. And then the majority of my clients are people who are already in relationships. They already have problems. And so they need that turnaround. They need to get this information before they get divorced, before they break up. So I work with anyone who's on any range of that spectrum, either before they get into a relationship, if they're already in a relationship, if they're at the end and they think, well, I'm willing to try one more thing before making a decision. And it's really couples, individuals who are ready to do the work. That is the most important thing. So if you are in a relationship, it is essential that you're in love and you're willing to do the work, because those are two things that I cannot give you.
Yeah.
Everything else I can teach you.
Amazing, right? If there's that willingness.
Yes.
If you have a willing heart to just try and be willing to learn what you don't know for a minute, you can turn that around.
So I am on Instagram and Facebook, Railey Molinario. As long as you can spell my name, you will find me.
And if not, we're going to put it in the comments below. So send me your pick bio links and we'll make sure it's easy to find you.
Perfect. And I always run a contest on my website for to win 1 free month of relationship coaching. So if anyone is interested in entering that, you just go to RaileyMolinario.com and pop your email in the pop-up window and you will be entered to win.
That is perfect. I love that so much because it gives people a chance to try it, right? Everybody likes games, so they can do that and get a taste of the experience of what it's like working with you. And what a blessing. I just want to say shout out from one curly hair queen to another. Thank you for the work you're doing for couples and families, because for my husband and I, that is our passion. Like, our big mission is for families, and there are so many people in the world that need this. Like, I'm thrilled to have someone else to refer to. So I'm so excited. Thank you for linking arms, literally, to spread love and help people around the globe, because love just transforms everything. It is the soothing balm. It is, anyway, I could go off and preach on that, but I'm just going to say thank you for the work you do. And I always love to ask my guests, if you were going to create a hashtag for your younger self that would have served you well in your journey, what would it be?
Oh, good question. I would say hashtag you've got this.
You've got this.
You've got this.
Yeah. You too. I love it. You've got this.
Yeah.
Like, there you go, everybody. So hashtag you've got this. And if you don't, reach out to Railey, because she can help you. If you love yourself, it makes it so much easier to love others. And that flowing and living in that place of personal responsibility, it unlocks everything. So I'm so excited that you came on the show today. Thank you. We'll make sure to get this out as an episode for the Legacy and Legends podcast as part of Light the World, which is perfect with your travel spirit. And I hope we get to link up on some vacation someday. Sunny.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Railey, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.